Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today is July 25th, 2015. Okay, good morning everybody. And so we have been discussing Sutta number 135 in the Middle Length Discourses. This is the Chula Akammavibhanga Sutta, the Shorter Exposition of Action. And the word translated action is actually the Pali word kamma, same as the Sanskrit karma. So it's not just the innocent word action, but it's action in a special sense of, call this, morally significant volitional action. And action here is conceived against the backdrop of the Buddhist understanding of volitional action as being a kind of, call it a moral force or even a cosmic force which determines our personal destiny. So according to the law of karma, whatever morally significant volitional deeds we perform, whether wholesome or unwholesome, good or bad, whether bodily, verbal, or purely mental, those deeds do not just disappear once the action is completed, but those deeds, we could say that they deposit a seed within the stream of the mind, or they create a certain potential within the mind, but a potential which is not merely psychological, but this karmic force that is generated is connected to a much, much wider, call it a global network of conditionality, such that these volitional actions, the karma created by the volitional actions, has a potential to come back to us in a way that corresponds to the ethical quality of the original action, so that the results that we experience as the effects of our willed actions reflect the moral quality of the original action. And of course, the basic principle, the most general principle, is that good deeds or wholesome deeds will come back to us in the form of beneficial results, fortunate results, whereas unwholesome deeds come back to us in the form of painful results, in the form of misfortune, deprivation, suffering. So that is the general working of the law of karma. And now this principle of karma is to be explained in this particular sutta in response to the question that was posed by the young Brahmin student named Subha. So he approached the Buddha and then he asked them, what is the cause and condition why human beings are seen to be inferior and superior? And then expressing this more elaborately, He says, why are they seen to be short-lived and long-lived, sickly and healthy, ugly and beautiful, uninfluential or powerless and influential or powerful, poor and wealthy, low-born and high-born, stupid and wise, foolish and wise. And so when he's asked that question, the Buddha first replies with a general statement, a brief statement. He says that living beings are the owners of their karma, the heirs of their karma. They originate from their karma. They are bound to their karma. They have karma as their refuge or resort. And it is their karma that distinguishes them as inferior and superior. Then when Subha says that he doesn't understand the meaning of this brief statement, then the Buddha offers to elaborate for him. And then he explains the first distinction is that between beings who are short-lived and long-lived. And so the Buddha explains this on the basis of, or he explains that those beings are short-lived because they have been killers of other living beings. So they've been devoted to a life of violence, merciless, and they've deprived other living beings of their life. And so all unwholesome deeds, their natural propensity is to, if they are to take on the role of generating rebirth, their propensity is to produce rebirth in the lower realms of existence. That is, in what is called the dugati, the bad destinations. Okay, so as I explained last week, that karmic actions have different functions. And so one of the functions is called the productive function. That's the function by which the deed produces rebirth. And so if that unwholesome deed of killing takes on the role of generating rebirth, then it will produce a rebirth into the bad destinations. The bad destinations, the lowest are the hell realms, then comes the realm of the animals, then the realm of the pretas, or the afflicted spirits. And so in its productive function, the bad deed produces the rebirth in a bad destination. But the bad deeds also have another function, which is called an obstructive function. And so if the bad deed takes on the obstructive function, then if the person has been reborn in a good destination, say as a human being, then that being will meet a lot of trouble and difficulty and hardships in the course of their life. And then the bad deed has still another function, which is called the destructive function. And if the bad deed of killing takes on the destructive function, then the person might be reborn in the happy destination as a human being, but because of the destructive function, when that karma matures, it will cut off the lifespan prematurely. And so we have a case where somebody might be living in good health, happiness, everything is going smoothly with that person, but then maybe a sudden accident, the person is caught in a sudden accident, automobile collision, or they might be walking innocently. Maybe we read sometimes people sitting in a restaurant and then a madman comes in with a gun and starts shooting. I mean, part of the fault is the gun policy, the crazy gun policy in this country. But the karmic factor underlying that, one would say, is that there is a latent destructive karma, a destructive karma lying latent in that person's stream of consciousness. And now that latent karma has gained the opportunity to ripen, that latent destructive karma. And so, there might be the restaurant of 70 people sitting there, and the gunman comes in and starts shooting, and maybe 3 people die. So why do 3 people die out of 70? So the explanation from a Buddhist point of view, at least a possible explanation, would be that there have been, in those people, they have had the tendencies, they have had a destructive karma seeking the opportunity to come to fruition. And that is what accounts for these sudden, otherwise abnormal deaths. Okay, then we have the opposite case, which is that of a person who abandons the killing of living beings and abstains from killing living beings. Somebody who has given up violence and makes the determination to be kind to others and to act towards others with loving kindness and compassion. And so this is creating wholesome or virtuous karma. And if that karma takes on the function of, the productive function of generating rebirth, since it's a good karma, it will produce rebirth in one of the sugatis, the good destination. And here the sutta speaks about the case, what would be the strongest case. That is the case where the karma takes on the role of generating rebirth in the heavenly realm. But then it says that if instead that person comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is long-lived. So the good karma of abstaining from killing produces rebirth. As a good karma, it produces rebirth in the human state. Human rebirth, according to Buddhism, is always the result of a wholesome karma. But not only does it produce rebirth in the human state, but because this is the karma of avoiding the destruction of life, when it produces rebirth in the human realm, then it will produce a rebirth which is of one who is long-lived, who enjoys a long lifespan. And so then the Buddha wraps up that section and he says, this is the way that leads to long life, namely abandoning the killing of living beings when abstains from killing living beings, and so on. Okay, so that is what we covered last week. Okay, now we come to the next section. Okay, a lot of this is similar, parallel to what we covered, what's covered in the basic pair, but the differences lie in the details. So here we have the case of a man or woman who is disposed in the habit of injuring beings with a clod, with a stick, with a knife. Those were the weapons that were available to people in ancient India. Okay, so again, if that karma takes on the role of generating rebirth, then it will bring a rebirth in one of the bad destinations. Probably the destination, the realm of rebirth, will not be as grave, and the torment will not be as severe as that of killing living beings, since killing takes away that which is most valuable, which is one's life. But maybe if one is disposed to injuring living beings, then when one gets reborn, then one might be reborn, possibly if the motivation is bad enough, with a lot of hatred and ill will and cruelty, it might bring a rebirth in the hells. But otherwise it could bring rebirth, say, in the animal realm, where you get reborn as an ill-treated ox. If you've ever seen an ox, it has to carry a heavy load, and then the owner is behind it, beating it with a whip. What are some other animals that have to undergo? Wow, there's just, the animals undergo so much torment and affliction in this country. You're maybe taken as a dog or a cat used for chemical tests to make cosmetics, or for testing the effects of various chemicals. Okay, but if a person comes back to the human state, if that person comes back to the human state, then the rebirth itself is determined by what kind of productive karma. Good or bad? Right, it's a wholesome karma. It is. Okay, hold that point. It's an interesting point, hold it. You have to learn. No, I'm not taking questions yet. Okay, but the karma that determines the rebirth is a good karma. But now, the unwholesome karma that has been created doesn't go away, but that karma can mature in a different way, not through the productive function, but it will take on the obstructive function. And so though the person is reborn as a human being through the good karma, but this person, through the maturing of the obstructive karma, they'll meet a lot of trouble and difficulty, especially difficulty regarding health. So if that person comes back to the human state, then wherever he or she is reborn, that person will be sickly, disposed to fall ill very often, have different kinds of health afflictions, even from childhood. Okay, so this is the way that leads to sickliness, namely one is given to injuring beings with a hand, with a clod, with a stick, with a knife, or with other means of affliction. And now, this seems to me to be a point, it's not clear from the sutta itself, but what I would say is that when a person is sickly and meets also with a lot of injuries and affliction at the hands of others, it can come about through the maturing either of the karma of taking life or the karma of injuring living beings. Both those types of karma can take on the obstructive role, and they'll produce pain, affliction, and misery for the person. Perhaps if the person is chronically ill, that is the result of injuring living beings. If the person undergoes a lot of injuries rather than illness, subjected to a lot of physical force and physical violence, that will be the result of the maturation in the obstructive role of the karma of taking life. But that's my personal opinion. Okay, then we have the contrary case. Here, some man or woman is not given to injuring beings with the hand, with the clod, with a stick, and so forth. Okay, because of performing and undertaking such action, under dissolution of the body after death, he is reborn in a happy destination. Okay, now this I'm not sure that I clarified this last week. So we speak here about somebody who is not injuring beings in various ways. So how does it come about that one is not deliberately injuring beings? We can think, or we could say that, okay, a person just doesn't have the opportunity to injure beings. And so, if a person in a situation where they don't encounter beings less fortunate than themselves or more vulnerable than themselves, then they're not injuring those beings. And so can we say that, therefore they are accumulating good karma? No. But rather, we make a distinction of 3 ways in which one is refraining from injuring and harming living beings. Okay, one way is called refraining when one encounters the opportunity. That is, one finds oneself in a situation, maybe, for example, we have a teenage kid and group of guys have gathered around a particularly vulnerable kid in the school, and they're teasing him, and the teasing but as they're teasing him, they get worked up even more, and then they start punching him and beating him. And there's one kid in the group who, when he sees this going on, thinks, that's not right. And so he refrains. Maybe he tries to dissuade the others without success. But while the others are beating up the unfortunate kid, this one is refraining. Even though there's the opportunity, everybody else is doing it, why isn't he doing it? Or maybe somebody is working in a laboratory where they are testing chemicals on animals, and he sees that this is his job and it's his responsibility to do this too. And so he makes a decision. He says, I can't do this. This is too cruel. I'm going to give up this job and find another job where I don't have to afflict animals. Okay, so this is called refraining in situations where one encounters the opportunity. In this case, the opportunity, sometimes even the obligation to inflict injury on others. Okay, the second case, or the second way in which one refrains from injuring living beings, this is when one undertakes a precept or undertakes a training rule. So in this case, one makes the determination, usually refraining from injuring living beings will be subsumed under the precept to abstain from the destruction of life. So when one takes the precept, panati pata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami, then one is directing one's will, making a firm determination even before any opportunity is encountered to transgress. And by making that determination, then one knows that even if whether one encounters that opportunity or not, one is not going to injure living beings. So for most of us, as we're following the Buddha's path, this is the way in which we refrain from injuring others, by undertaking the precept, the training rule, and so we are directing our minds along the track of the precept. And so the precept itself, undertaking the precept itself, sets up a powerful condition that will block one from any kind of transgressive action. Okay, the third way in which one refrains from injuring living beings is when one cuts off permanently the defilement that is responsible for violence against others. In this case, I think it would probably be with the achievement, the cutting off of the tendency to killing living beings takes place, I believe, with the attainment of stream entry. And so the stream enterer is one who observes the 5 precepts inviolably. And I would assume that under that also the stream enterer is one who just by his very nature will not inflict harm and injury on other living beings. Okay, maybe I'll ask whether there are any questions at this point. Victor, okay.
First, Bhante, can you really explain cosmic force? I'm
Did I use that
missing
expression?
where does the decision get made if we're going to get God out of the picture?
Yeah. Let me use it in an analogy. I don't know if you'll accept it, but if I throw a rubber ball against that wall at this angle, who is it that determines that the ball is going to bounce off that wall in that direction? What is that?
You do.
No.
You know that if you hit a ball here, it's going to go there.
No, I don't determine that it's going to go there. I determine which way I'm going to throw the ball. But the way the ball will bounce after it hits the wall is determined by any physicist here.
Newton called it laws of motion.
Yeah, it's a law of motion. Okay, who makes the law? The laws of motion? a theist, of course, will say God makes the laws of motion, but there are millions of scientists who are non-theists, who are atheists. They accept the laws of motion without accepting a God who imposes the law and regulates events according to the law. And so in the same way, there is, according to the Buddhist teaching, there is this principle of karma, according to which actions produce results that correspond to the nature of the action. And that is just, it's as fixed a law is fixed a cosmic law as the laws of motion.
Thank you so much. One more thing. Actually, I have 5, but
No.
just one. If you're born with wholesome karma,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
why would you kill?
Why
would you
what?
You're born with wholesome karma.
Yeah.
You come from wholesome karma.
Yeah.
You didn't kill. You did all the
Yeah.
right things. You came back.
Yeah.
Why would you then kill?
I would say that though a human being is, a being is reborn into the human realm as a result of wholesome karma, but there are many defilements which have been lying in the mind, through time without beginning. Yeah. And many habitual tendencies which have been planted in the mind, established in the mind. And so one has these habitual tendencies. We have both the defilements inherited through the beginningless past, the presently activated defilements which can be aroused by personal upbringing, by social conditions, economic conditions, and there are one's own habitual tendencies which are brought over from previous lives. And so all of these together can dispose a person to kill and to injure others, even though they're reborn in the human realm as a result of the wholesome karma. Yeah. Yeah. But there are some problems which I'll bring up when we come to a later section. Yeah, there are some problems, yeah. So I'm not going to let the Buddha get off so easily, or myself get off so easily.
Bhante, you said if you throw the ball against the wall,
Yeah,
it's going to bounce in a certain way.
yeah.
But don't you know that if you throw the ball at a certain angle, it's going to bounce?
Well, maybe if I throw it, but let's suppose,
Let me just add one thing. If you fire a gun into a crowd, don't you know that you're going to, yes, I'm not aiming at anybody, but it's the same thing. If you fire a gun, don't you know that there's a consequence, or a certain action is going to happen, or a reaction, should I say, on your action, based on your action?
I'm not quite sure I get the point. When one shoots a gun into a crowd, of course one knows that there's a high probability that you're going to kill people. You don't know that the act of killing is going to produce a karmic force that's going to result in suffering in either later in this life or in a future life. That one doesn't know. Okay, and if the problem of a person throwing the ball against the wall, if you find that problematic, how about there's a dead tree in the woods and the wind blows at a particular velocity? What is it that determines that the tree, when the wind reaches when the tree dries out to a certain extent and the wind reaches a certain velocity and the roots are weakened to a certain extent, what is it that determines that the tree will fall on this day at this moment rather than on other days at other moments? It's just the laws of physics. Victor had his hand up at the beginning, so.
Thank you, Bhante. I remember last week you said that karma is intention.
Yeah.
So And these suttas discussed, or this particular sutta discusses the like killing or harming with the intention to kill or harm.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was any sutra that discussed what, like, if you had to kill, for example, to save others. In other words, your intention was to save, like self-defense, or
Yeah.
even though you killed a person, you had a good intention.
Yeah.
Is that? Have you?
It's an interesting point, because there are this has been something frustrating for me as well. So I haven't encountered the problem in real life, but just on a theoretical level, that one doesn't find in the suttas situations where there is what we would call a conflict of moral obligations. And so this would raise, problems. What does one do when there is a conflict of moral obligations? For example, let us take the case, a policeman comes on the scene, there's a madman who's some distance away so that he can't just shoot to injure. A madman has come into a schoolyard and he's shooting its students. And already maybe the madman has killed several students and he's continuing to shoot. So the policeman, I would say that it's his obligation to protect the public. He has to kill. And so the intention is quite different from that of somebody who, with a malicious intent, will take the lives of others. Excuse me? It's an interesting question. Does he create unwholesome karma? If one just takes the text on the surface, you would have to say, yes, but the unwholesome karma is mitigated by the fact that the intention is to protect the lives of innocent people. But then couldn't one say that the intention of protecting the lives of innocent people creates a wholesome karma? These are things, the complexity, I don't have the answers to them. In the back, please. Your name is?
Good morning. So, if I understand this, and you can correct me, Bhante, if the outer world is a projection of my inner world,
If the outer world?
If the outer world is a projecting of my inner world.
Projection? I don't know that I would use that word, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
go
if
on.
I am shooting at somebody, is it in a sense, I'm kind of shooting at myself in a sense? Or no?
Well, first, I wouldn't say that the outer world is a projection
Okay.
of the inner world.
Okay.
But things that occur in the outer world can be, can reflect or can be the consequences of our karma, of our previous actions. And if we shoot somebody, I wouldn't say that you're shooting yourself. I wouldn't take that literally, but if one shoots somebody, one is creating a karma which can mature at some future time in the form of somebody shooting at you and then taking your life, whether that occurs in this life itself or more likely in some future life.
Thank you.
Okay, since we're close to Debbie, you take Debbie, Ravi, and Chris. Then we have to go on. Because there are some interesting sections, problematic sections to come.
Since many animals must kill to survive, is that the intention to kill considered a volitional act that would be interpreted as karma?
Yeah, I would say definitely that's the case. But what I would say, the case of animals, when they are killing, even to survive, they are committing the act of killing, and it's an unwholesome intention, and it's creating unwholesome karma. But I would say that in the case of animals, because killing is sort of embedded within their biological program, it's quite different from that of the killing by human beings who are not obliged to kill by their very nature. And so in an animal killing, the intention is not vicious, not malicious, But because killing is so widespread in the animal realm, this is why it's said that once a being falls into the animal realm, it becomes very difficult to get out of it. Though there are animals that, for the most part, don't kill. And even there are cases where animals save lives, like very loyal dogs who sometimes even will risk their own life to save a member of the family. But I'm not hearing. But that's... You're going out of turn. I think... Did I say you? I said you. Oh, okay.
Bhante, since killing is a really extreme situation,
Yeah.
a lot of us don't indulge in killing.
Yeah.
What, in your view, is a comparable, action in this lifetime which generates bad karma or as bad karma? I mean, by law or just by general evolution, I think there'd be about 75-80% of us who'll never indulge in something as extreme as killing someone or something.
I didn't quite get the question.
So if bad karma of this extent is only generated by killing or taking a life,
Yeah.
and the majority of us do not indulge in an action like that,
Yeah.
do you believe that we are just progressing towards a better lifetime? Or, it's a little unrealistic to think a lot of us could be killing, maybe in the
Yeah,
times
but don't
of
forget that
Buddha.
there are many other types of unwholesome actions besides killing.
Right.
So unwholesome actions are creating unwholesome karma, and
Karma.
unwholesome karma has the tendency to bring a lower rebirth.
So it's not just killing, but it could be other
Oh yeah,
unwholesome
there are
karma
many,
also.
there are,
Right.
last week I think I spoke about the 10 paradigmatic,
That's
or
right.
the paradigm of unwholesome karma with 10 types of unwholesome action. We had Ravi next, then Chris.
Thank you, Bhante. Bhante, when it comes to these scientific things, one must be very careful because Newton's laws of motion were considered the last word in science at that time.
So,
Newton's laws of motion were considered the last word in science 200 years ago.
Yeah.
But today they find that those laws don't hold when it comes to subatomic
Yeah, I
particles.
know, yeah.
So for me, as far as I'm concerned, I consider it all as part of nature, and I don't worry about that part. You know, because on the other hand, with reference to karma, to me, it's a very simple thing. If you do something good, automatically good will follow.
Yeah.
As said in the Dhammapada, if
Yeah.
you do something bad,
Yeah.
and this concept is there
Yeah.
in most religions,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
Because they say in the Bible,